Welcome back to the 291st episode of the Daily Flip podcast, part 2. For those of you that are confused, part 1 actually came out yesterday. I was recording a segment about Joe Biden and the speculation around it, and then he dropped out in the middle of it, so I had to go back and record. I put out a breaking podcast. That is over there, yesterday's episode. It was a premiere. Today we're going to do the last story that was intended to be on the back of that. So it's going to be like, maybe 10 minutes over here. And this one is about the Secret Service and the breakdowns and how they actually didn't provide some of the resources to Trump that the Trump campaign had requested. So with all that said, let's jump into our daily debate, which is, should the director of the Secret Service drop out? Should she drop down? I mean, her boss just dropped out of the presidency. Maybe she should follow his lead. So as of the recording of this, it's Sunday, obviously, because I just told you about the details of the Biden story coming out. They are going to be doing a House Oversight Committee today as of it coming out, so on Monday afternoon. So this may preempt it, and you should be able to go see some of the coverage of her being grilled by the people in Congress. So we will see how all of that turns out for her. Probably not going to be very well, especially with this reporting coming from the New York Times with the headline, Secret Service says it denied earlier Trump requests for more federal resources. So the quote starts here. Quote, there's an untrue assertion, and this is coming from one of the media teams. Quote, there's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional resources and that they were rebuffed. Anthony Gogolmegi, I'm sorry I mispronounced his name, I don't know how to do it, a spokesman for the Secret Service said last Sunday, the day after the shooting. So that's what they came out and said. They said, no. Last Sunday, when there were reports that there were more resources asked for, the thing is, they're speaking specifically here about the Butler rally. They end up talking about it further down in the article, which is they didn't actually request more resources for the Butler rally. They had requested more resources for different rallies in the past, and more general, hey, we need more resources kind of comments made to the Secret Service teams and the higher-ups. And the point I want to make is, yes, maybe they didn't rebuff them here, but the question becomes, if they rebuffed them so much in the past, why would they assume when they asked the next time that they would get those resources? Now, of course, I'm sure the campaign team is not going to sit back on their laurels and say, oh, they'll never give it to us. They're not going to give up like that, because especially when it comes to the protection of the person running for the office of president, they're not going to just sit back and say, oh, well, it's okay if we don't keep requesting. They're going to keep requesting. But that doesn't mean that mentality didn't set in and they were going and saying, hey, I know you're probably not going to recommend this. You're not going to give us these resources. Or maybe they did it more sparingly. Maybe they said, well, okay, this really big rally we want to ask for. That's something that's going to come out with more reporting, but it's just very, very interesting. And so, yes, this gentleman, the spokesperson's point is true. For the Butler rally, they didn't ask for more resources. But this is actually resurfacing of previous reporting that they had asked for more resources in the past, and now that it's coming out after the assassination attempt, it does not look good for the Secret Service, especially now that you see them actually changing their mind and giving giving the services of the Secret Service to RFK Jr. as well. But let me keep going with the article's reporting here. Quote, Alejandro N. Mayorkas. Sorry, I always like to add the little flair. If there's any Latinos, Latinxes out there that feel offended by that, please let me know, and I will probably do nothing about it because I still enjoy doing the flair. Quote, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the Secret Service, said on Monday that the accusation that he had issued the denials was, quote, a baseless and irresponsible statement, and it is one that is unequivocally false, end quote. So you have both spokesperson and Alejandro Mayorkas coming out and saying, nope, not true. Not true, okay? We did not do this. They didn't want to get caught up in the partisan swirl. And if people were asking specifically about the Butler rally, there you go. They're right. But let's delve a little bit deeper. It's literally the next paragraph. Quote, on Saturday, that's referring to July 20th. On Saturday, Mr. Gogolmegi acknowledged the Secret Service had turned down some requests for additional federal security assets for Mr. Trump's detail. Two peoples briefed on the matter, who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly, confirmed that the Trump campaign had been seeking additional resources for the better part of the time that Mr. Trump had been out of office. They denied the request for additional resources were not specifically for the rally in Butler, said Mr. Guglielmi said. I'm really butchering his name there. But like I said, not specifically for Butler. That's the end of their statement there. But it literally highlights that in the past, there have been multiple requests. Trump's team never actually got it. And I think that Trump's being smart here. He's going to let things unfold. He's going to let it play out. He's also, the Secret Service members that are directly near him, his family has come out and said that they trust those people, that's the inner circle. He has thanked the people that were involved in helping protect him and how they were courageous, and he's very grateful for their service. You obviously don't come out and just attack the Secret Service without any, especially as a presidential candidate. You don't want to be attacking the people that protect you. But at the end of the day, this does raise a lot of questions. Quote, the agency also faced questions as to why it allowed Mr. Trump to take the stage at the Butler Farm showgrounds, even after receiving information that law enforcement was looking for someone suspicious in the crowd. So here's something else that they were talking about. Quote, the would-be assassin was able to roam freely outside the perimeter before he took his position on the roof, though local officers had noticed him acting oddly and notified other law enforcement. That is a serious question. Why, after there was somebody who was a little bit suspicious, would they let him go and do his speech? Maybe they brought it up to Trump and Trump said, it's okay. It's not a big deal. It's just somebody acting a little bit odd. I have odd people that love me all the time. It happens. Maybe that's what he's saying to his people around him. Maybe they just didn't think it was that big of a deal because maybe they thought the local police were just being a little bit they were being a little bit suspicious. They were being a little bit paranoid. I honestly don't know. But we will see, especially as the oversight committee happens tomorrow. Wait for it. Wait for it. There are going to be so many, I repeat, so many clips coming out of that. You're going to have Republicans absolutely grilling her. You're probably going to have Democrats grilling her as well, because if this is something that's actually able to happen to a former president who is currently running for the office that the Secret Service is meant to protect, along with other dignitaries and officials, we heard that there were some questions from foreign allies initially about the power and the security that could be provided by the Secret Service. The Democrats are also going to be asking questions, which is, if you can let this happen to him, what are you telling me it could happen to the president as well? I'm sure lots of resources go into every single presidential visit. I'm sure that to some degree they would take a preferential look at the presidential events and even maybe his immediate family's events like Joe Biden and say, okay, we need to dedicate a certain amount of resources here versus other people who are former presidents or even presidential candidates, because the Secret Service does actually provide, once the general normally kicks up, they provide services to candidates within the election. And like I said, now that RFK Jr. is getting the love and attention that he deserves, and he's 10, I think some polls have him at 10 and 11, other polls have him at like 8%. That's still not a small chunk of the population. That is definitely something where you have to sit back and say, okay, yeah, we actually do have to take a look at this one, and we do have to actually care about this for even RFK. Even though the Biden administration didn't want to really acknowledge his existence, they were kind of like, oh, no, what? There's somebody in the Democratic primary facing up against me? No. They kind of ignored him. Now he's an independent, and especially with the scrutiny that the Secret Service is coming under because of the Donald Trump incident, they don't want, and I'm going to get my little cynical hat, I'm going to put it on real quick, they do not need the attempted assassination of Donald Trump and then the attempted assassination of RFK, or even the assassination of RFK, or any sort of security protocols falling apart because he has to use his own private security when the Secret Service should have been there. They can't take that extra criticism right now. And on top of that, he should have just had it in the first place. I'll be honest. I understand that some people don't like RFK. He's not part of the RNC. He's not part of the DNC. He's an independent. And yeah, okay, he's not in either of the mainstream parties. Does he really have a chance to win? Probably not, but he is still a major candidate, and we need to ensure that major candidates, even if they're outside the current structure, have protection, because otherwise it just looks like the current structure, the RNC and the DNC, are sitting there like, oh no, we'll provide protection for our candidates, and we'll make sure that they make it in, but we're not going to let any challengers have any protection. What do you mean? That just looks absolutely terrible. It looks like they're protecting their own hide. So, with all that out of the way, we went through that one. I'm going to actually do a Daily Delight. Even though I did a Daily Delight yesterday as well, we're going to do a Daily Delight for today. Obviously, that's normally how we end things. And if you want to check out any of the link to this particular article, it will be in the description. If you want to check out the link to the article we just talked about, the New York Times article, it will be in the description. If you want to hear about the Biden dropping out, I will actually provide a link in the description of this video. It will be the top link to that video. So as you can see, we're making a little bit of interconnectivity here. And with all that, let's actually jump into the article that comes from Boing Boing. See the first armadillo pups born in North America since 2018. And I'll be honest, these guys, absolutely adorable. I'm just going to read the part of the first paragraph. Like I said, if you want to go check out the video or read the rest of the article, link in the description. Earlier this year, the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans, Louisiana, welcomed two screaming hairy armadillo pups, Birkenstock and Teva. The adorable pair are the first baby screaming hairy armadillos, that is the name of the breed, that's not just descriptors, born in North America since 2018. And if you want to hear about these hairy screamy guys, go on down, find that video, enjoy it, let it bring a little bit of a smile to your face as we think about the craziness of our election with the Biden thing and the craziness of the Secret Service may not actually be up to snuff, so on and so forth. So, with all that said, we're going to do our normal outro. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I've already mentioned all the links that you can find in the description below that like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast, or you can find the link to the Twitter account where I post a Twitter tirade every Tuesday and Thursday at your Daily Flip. And with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.